John Hines frequently cites the details when he talks about games for the Minnesota Wild. Here are 3 details that are dooming the Wild that I saw from my couch.
Hey, this is Matt Boldy, and you're listening to Locked On Wild.
Hey, this is Marcus Foligno, and you're listening to Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is happening, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team each and every day. We thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day as well. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com. And you can win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, we will take a look at 3 base-level details that are dooming the Wild so far this season, including slow starts, turnovers, and the lack of net front presence. My name is Seth Toupal, host of Locked On Wild, and we have talked not just this year. We've talked about these key concepts for the last several seasons, and the reason that I bring them up tonight is because they've become trends over the last couple of seasons that have just been completely overlooked. A leak that sprouts out of a stone wall, and you just think, well, the stone wall is there. We don't have to worry about that becoming a problem anytime. But the more leaks, the more problems, and then all of a sudden the wall breaks, the dam breaks, and you get a mess on your hands. And the Minnesota Wild so far in the 2025-2026 season, they got a little cleanup on aisle 5 that needs to take place here ASAP. So I wanted to just look at these key areas to paint you a picture of just kind of how far things have slid over the last couple of years. And I want to start with one that I think has become one of the most pressing issues for this team, but it is not a new problem. This has been a problem for the last couple of seasons especially, and that is net front presence. Now, friend of the show, Brett Marshall, talked about this in regards to the amount of high danger chances that the Minnesota Wild continue to give up on a daily basis, on a game-by-game basis. Now, this is just 5-on-5. This does not factor in power play. This is 5-on-5. The Minnesota Wild have surrendered the 5th most high danger chances in the NHL at 85. 5th most. Now, how many do they themselves have? They are 21st in the league with 65. So they're minus 20 in the high danger chances department. Now, what does that mean as far as goals go? So you've got 65 high danger chances. The Minnesota Wild have 2 high danger goals. That is tied for the worst in the NHL. And it's not only opposing goalies making acrobatic saves. There is a full wide scope of problems with this issue. There is some unlucky play involved with some high danger chances that are acrobatic, incredible saves by opposing goalies. So there have been some times where the Wild probably deserve high danger goals and they have not been able to get them. But there are also plenty of other instances in which you have a player right in front of the net, nobody between them and the goalie, and the puck is sent wide. The puck is whiffed on entirely. The puck is sent over the top of the net, out of play, from 5 feet and in, from right in front of the net. Vladimir Tarasenko has had a couple of those instances this year alone, right out in front, and the inability to get it done. to bring the goal home. Yakov Trenyan, same story. He has had issues with right in front of the net, with getting goals in those departments. I don't really care what your skill level is. I don't really care what your hockey expertise is. The rule of thumb that applies to basically every player that has ever played in the National Hockey League, including goalies, the closer you get to the net, the easier in theory it should be to score. And so, yeah, if you have a shot from the perimeter that gets blocked, your odds of scoring from that spot are incredibly low. There's nobody to beat other than the goalie. And the Wild have the fact that they have 2 high danger goals in 5-on-5 play this year and 65 chances is frankly mind blowing. And the fact that there are 2 other teams that have that few is astonishing. But it is an issue that has been present for a while. The Minnesota Wild last year were dead last in the NHL in high danger goals for, with 45. Now, defensively, they were 19th in the league. They were the 14th best, 19th worst, 14th best as far as giving up high danger goals at 58. So defensively, they were able to make that not as big of an issue because they limited opponents' high danger goals, but they didn't score any at all last year. This year, however, the Minnesota Wild have given up. They're tied with the New Jersey Devils. They are 27th in the league as far as high danger goals go this season. They have given up 9 high danger goals in 10 games, including 4 alone to the San Jose Sharks. Now, a couple of those were on the power play, but still, 4 high danger goals surrendered to an opponent in any game is, you may as well just plant lawn chairs out there on the ice. But again, this has been a problem for the Minnesota Wild for quite some time. You could even take this back another year, the year in which Dean Evison was fired, John Hines was brought in. How did the Wild do that year as far as high danger looks go? The Minnesota Wild were 21st in the league as far as high danger goals at 64 2 years ago. They actually had a positive differential in 5-on-5 high danger goals. They were plus 12 in that department because they gave up the 3rd fewest high danger goals 2 years ago. So this has been trending in the wrong direction over the last couple of seasons. But it speaks to something that we have talked about on this show quite a bit. The everydayers, just add this to the list of issues for this team. Just put this down on the piece of paper that is keeping track of the issues that this team has had over the last few years. They don't have a consistent net front presence defensively at all. Every time I have seen somebody in front of the net that is responsible for a goal, it's usually either Jared Spurgeon or Jonas Brodin or Zach Bogosian. Opposing teams have for far too long been able to park in front of the net and just take that space. And the Wild don't have anybody that either can or attempts to keep that area clean. And net front presence, it comes down, there's going to be 2 common themes in this episode today. Effort and awareness. Effort and awareness. Because one of the problems that we have noticed, especially this year, in the instances in which the Wild are trying to establish net front presence, especially on defense, on the penalty kill, you are more focused on the player that you're trying to keep out from in front of the net as opposed to being aware of your surroundings. This bit Zach Bogosian on one particular goal in which it went on off his skate. Jonas Brodin had that happen too. He was not 100% keyed in on the play, and I believe it was the Utah Mammoth, alertly lasered one towards the net and it went in off his skate. Effort, awareness at all times. And those have been lacking so far this season. So number one on the list of issues has been the net front on both sides of the ice. The Wild are going in the wrong direction as far as high danger goals that they are scoring themselves. That number is getting fewer and fewer, and they're giving up more and more. Should be the other way around. Should be, but it isn't. So that's one. That is one of the spots that's an issue. Effort and awareness theme continues, because when we come back, we're going to talk about the turnovers. It turns out a far too big percentage of the turnovers are occurring in actual crucial spots that you just can't do it. So we'll look at where the turnovers are occurring and what it is leading to for the Minnesota Wild. That is coming up as we continue to analyze terrible trends on today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there is no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps things exciting, especially when your team is making the late push. I will say, with Anthony Edwards out of the lineup for at least the next week, if you're looking for player props, hammer the over on anything related to Julius Randle. Points, rebounds, he is going to be the focal point of this offense going forward, and I think he's certainly up to the challenge. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Again, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Skyrocketing subs as we continue to move through the start of the season. So if you have not subbed as of yet, make sure to do so you don't miss out on any new episodes. We're analyzing terrible trends, and these are not things that have just happened this season. These you could see coming from a mile away. And I did from my couch. And these are details that should be shored up. These should not be happening. These should not be continuing to trend with zero attention being paid to try to fix them. Turnovers is the next one that I would like to get to. Giveaways in particular. Now, the Minnesota Wild, they currently sit in seventh in the league. Now, again, this is just 5-on-5. They're seventh in the league in giveaways to the opponent at 144. They have a ways to go to catch the Colorado Avalanche, who have the most, at 177. Now, you're going to turn the puck over. So that's not a huge area of concern. But one trend with this is very concerning. Number one, the ratio of giveaways to takeaways. The Minnesota Wild have generated the fifth most takeaways as a team, but that only represents 48% of the total turnovers for the team. And that ratio is 19th in the league. And furthermore, the 144 giveaways that they have, guess how many of those have been in the defensive zone? 75, which is tied for second worst in the league. 75% of those giveaways have occurred in the defensive zone. And I can tell you the culprits without even looking. Passes from the back of the net to the top of the defensive zone. Attempts to clear. Attempts to simply move the puck to the top of the zone after the Wild get pinned on the defensive end for a long stretch. No-look passes. Passes that are going to no one. They're going to an assumed spot where someone is going to be, and there's no one there. And just this has gotten worse over the last couple of years too, is just the general carelessness with the puck. And when John Hines first took over, he talked about the need to play quickly, because it's not a team that has much speed. You're playing as a team that has not much speed in a league that prioritizes speed. So you got to cut corners somewhere. And honestly, like I remember applauding the approach when he first took over. Like, yeah, it makes sense that if you are not a fast team, you have to work on ways to overcome that. You can't get pinned down in your own zone for large stretches and expect that you're going to come out of it clean. But over the last couple of years, it has gotten to the point that I think anytime somebody has the puck, the instinct immediately is to get rid of it, as opposed to looking where it's going. You're speeding up the process to the point that you don't even have a clue as to who's going to be in that spot or where the puck is going. You just have muscle memoried yourself to say, I have the puck, now it needs to go somewhere else. Speeding up your thinking process. And as a result, you're catching sticks and the puck is just gliding off of them. You're throwing passes to nowhere. And you have players that aren't able to keep up. If we wind back a year, the Minnesota Wild last season, they were number 12 in the league as far as giveaways go. Now, the number of those that happened in the defensive zone, much lower on the list last year. 503. In 5-on-5. So your percentage of giveaways that occurred in the defensive zone was 45%, but that was the third highest. It was the third highest percentage, third lowest percentage, third lowest percentage of the turnovers that occurred in the defensive zone. And it just continues to trend in the wrong direction. 2 years ago, giveaways to opponents. The Minnesota Wild were near the bottom. They were second fewest in 5-on-5 in the league at 435. And the defensive zone giveaways to the opponent, again, they were 27th in the league. The turnovers are skyrocketing for this team over the last couple of years, and I think that is largely because the process has become so accelerated that now the number one thing, instead of looking where the puck is going, is the act of passing the puck itself, as opposed to let me take a second to look up the ice and see who's down there. No, it's puck's on my stick. It's got to go. And this again, it leads to so many extended possessions, so many additional opportunities for opponents, so many point blank goals. And you're hoping in those situations, you're hoping that the puck gets to the top of the zone. A lot of times the turnovers happen at the face-off circles, and it's an immediate shot right in the midsection of the goalies. So turning it over at the top of the zone at the blue line, that's best case scenario. A lot of times these turnovers happen far further down, but just like the continued split in the wrong direction for the net front presence, the spike in turnovers continues to trend in the wrong direction. And not by a little bit, sizable amount. The other thing, this is probably the most glaring. It's probably the most noticeable of the nitty-gritty details that have doomed this team through the first 10 games of the season. This is another trend that has been building over the last couple of seasons, treating home like a road game. We're going to dive into all those statistics as well as we continue today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by Game Time. Hockey season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. Let's be real. Getting tickets can be a total headache. Between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout, it's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where Game Time comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. My favorite part about Game Time is that prices for tickets actually go down. The closer you get to your event, it makes those spontaneous trips that are so much fun all that much more worthwhile. So, if you are looking for an opportunity to score some great tickets, take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Alex joining us tomorrow. My schedule is a mess today, so we'll have Alex on for tomorrow's show. And again, we're just going to continue to dive into what has been a very rocky start to the season, to say the least, for the Minnesota Wild. We're going to look at some of the biggest culprits. We're going to try to find particular players, and I've got some quotes from John Hines over the year, and Alex is going to try to guess what team they came from, where he said them. Going to be a lot of fun, but that's going to lead into, I think, a important conversation to have as to where this team is at so far. Final troubling trend that we have seen from this Minnesota Wild team over the last couple of seasons: the record at home. The Minnesota Wild, if you wind the clock back, and I know we are, I think, all on the same page that the 2021-2022 season was, as fun as it was, is an aberration. It was not something that was even possible to replicate. 31-8-2 at home. The Minnesota Wild were in 2021-2022. They have not come close to replicating that. They have not come close to replicating that level of success over the last few seasons. But just looking at, some of the things that made that team tick. The Minnesota Wild in the 2021-2022 season, when they scored first at home, they were 19-3-1. When they outshot their opponents, they were 19-7-2. When they had the lead after one period at home, 17-1-1. When they led after two, 18-0-1. The Minnesota Wild in 2021-2022, they scored first in 45 of their games. They still had a 17-20 record when the opponent scored first. They also had a 24-5-7 record in one-goal games. Overall, when they led after one period, they were 31-2-1. After two, 35-0-3. At home, the Minnesota Wild outscored their opponents in every single quarter. They outscored their opponents 168-120 at home. That included 50-35, plus 15 in the first period. They were also plus 9 in the second. They were plus 16 in the third. They were plus 8 in overtime. Ever since, it has gone in the wrong direction. 2022, 2023. Now, this was the year that Philip Gustafsson was incredible. Should have been a Vezina candidate. And the Wild that year at home, they were 25-12-4. 25-16 does not quite have the same ring to it. But as far as the peripherals go, they were 11-1-1 when scoring first at home. 11-0-1 when they led after one. 16-0-2 when they led after two. The numbers started to get dicey when the opponent scored first. The Wild in 2022-2023 were 7-11-3 when the opponent scored first. They were 4-9-1 when they trailed after one period, and 5-11 when they trailed after two. Fast forward another year to the 2023-2024 season. The Minnesota Wild were 5-13 at home when the opponent scored first. They were 9-30 overall when the opponent scored first. And they were even at home, 37 goals apiece in the first period. They were +2 in the second. They were -5 in the third. So as we have seen the depth scoring dry up, we've seen the inability to get an early lead continue to rise. Last year, the Minnesota Wild were -4 in goals at home in the first period. And just think about this for a second. When you're playing at home, you want your fans behind you. So you got to give them something to be amped up about, right? Like, you can't treat home games as if you are trying to, hang on for dear life through the first few minutes of the period to avoid a team's hot start. And then you got to kind of manufacture it. That's what you do on the road. That's your road approach. And I think as we have seen the Wild morph into that type of team that has to stop their opponents from scoring, it's more about them stopping their opponents from scoring than it is about the Wilds getting out to the early lead. And that coincides with the lack of depth scoring. It's come down to 2 or 3 players that legitimately give you a chance to grab the early lead. And so instead of chasing the first goal, you are chasing the first deficit, which is, that's boring for fans. That's why the Wild were most successful on the road last year, is because they weren't having to try to come up with a way to get the home fans into it. Pretty easy if you're good at stopping your opponent from scoring for large stretches. Pretty easy to take the crowd out of it and turn it into a road game. But you have got to find a way to turn home ice advantage into into a benefit. So far at home this year, the Wild are even in the first period. They're -1 in goals in the second, and they are -6 in the third. It should be the exact opposite. You should be putting a team away in the third period at home. But if you have no depth scoring to speak of, if you're an old and tired team, you're hanging on for dear life to try to prevent the other team from scoring, you get what you pay for. So these have, again, these are not new problems. These are all trends that have popped up and have festered and have expanded and have grown and have contributed to the rot that we currently see with this team. And it all stems back to the 2021-2022 season when everything clicked. The offense was immaculate. And that has been the season that's been being chased ever since. And again, I'll use the phrase, it's 10 games in, but it feels like it's getting late early. And Alex and I are going to talk about it tomorrow, but there's really not a sense of any sort of concern. There is intelligence gathering going on throughout the organization as to some of the issues with the roster, but there's not much going on beyond that. So that's our episode for today. Again, make sure to like and subscribe if you have not already so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. We've got you covered with new episodes every Monday through Friday right here on Locked On Wild. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.